So this is Colourless Boxes Theatre Podcast. I'm joined by John. I came across his Instagram page called SellyourArtBlog. You work a lot with artists, kind of promoting artists, visual artists, kind of photography, that sort of stuff. It does sound like a really interesting concept and a really interesting idea, to do. And you've got a lot of stuff on social media, and we've got lots of stuff that we want to talk about. So kind of the first question in here, you know, tell me about your art blog. Tell me about the promoting side, the advertising side of it, and kind of yourself supporting fellow artists, and how does it all work really?
Yeah, I mean it was just the idea of trying to promote the arts
Yeah.
in general. Although it's kind of limited to visual artists just because I think it's a very different thing promoting music. And it's quite a different thing promoting photography. So it was visual artists and sculptors and that kind of thing. Um, so my thing is uh, promoting. When the internet first came out and the World Wide Web came out, the idea was you'd have a one-to-one connection with people. And
Yeah.
so there wouldn't be any of the kind of middlemen thing going on. You'd know who your buyers were and you'd sail along together. So I do like the independence side of things. Um, and so I'm kind of heading for independence and freedom for artists. That's the kind of goal of it. And so I'm kind of promoting that. So, and I say that because there's this other side of things, which is, okay, I'm an artist and I want to get into galleries and get into to be accepted by the art establishment. Um, and kind of what I do comes before that, I think,
Okay. Yeah.
because the art establishment is going to want to take you on when it can see that it can make some money out of you. And so you need to be able to show that your art is desirable and you've got fans. It comes like nowadays, if you want to make it in music, you want to be signed up by a record industry,
Mm.
a record company, they'll say, well, I want to see 50,000 followers on your Instagram account,
Yeah.
before we'll even talk to you. And so it's the same thing in the art industry. It's kind of, okay, does this work? Have you kind of proved that it works? And so I'm in that space of if you're not kind of signed, if you're not with a gallery, um, and or you want to be an independent artist, you want your own freedom, you want to do your own thing, then that's kind of what I'm here to support. That
Oh,
was
absolutely. Yeah. And it does sounds like, because I think kind of there's a lot of I think I've talked to a few artists in the past before. I'm actually within a family of artists. It's a lot
right.
of my cousin, who's doing a fourth year art degree in London. He does a lot of fine art, and well, mostly on my mother's side, they're all musicians and artists. And a lot of people in my family do sculptures and potters as well. Do a lot of pottery. So I know a little bit about it, but it's I think I was talking to my cousin um the other month, and he's on his fourth year with university, and he's just finished up an art degree. And I think especially with students, that want to, finish university and get the work out, one of the hardest things they can ever do, is kind of go out in the world after finishing university and putting on exhibitions and putting the work out there. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of what you were talking about. It's the way you put out in the world, and you got to have all the tools on social media and everything else to, make yourself look good. And obviously, that's something you're trying to do for other artists. And But yeah, it can be really difficult for,
It is
like you
hard.
said, musicians. To,
It
mm,
is it is hard. You're in a free market essentially, and so you need to be better than everyone else. Not everyone else.
yeah,
You need to rise above, what everyone else is doing, really. That sounds very kind of cutthroat, and I don't mean that. What actually the crux of what I the crux of everything is values. So this actually comes from we call him Tony Bobbins in this house. In his first book, he talked about values, and he said the idea is if you if you think being joyful or finding joy in situations is important to you, then that's kind of what you'll lead on, and those you'll make decisions to find joy in life. Um, and then either in relationships or in business or in this case in art, if someone else also wants more joy in the world, you'll connect. Whereas if you're into joy and someone else is into precision, they just kind of miss completely. Um,
Yeah. Mm.
so so by working out what it is that gets you up in the morning, what it is that drives you, the values that are at the core of you, and they're in a hierarchy actually. So the most important values that you live by, um, and kind of turning it up to 11, kind of living it overtly. So it kind of gives you permission to do that
Yeah.
because the more that is visible, the more you'll attract people who live for the same thing, and so you'll and they will, even if they don't buy a painting or a piece of art, they'll support you because you're for the world that they want as well. So these are kind of lifelong supporters that you're gathering. Um, and so in a few of my kind of courses or in coaching or whatever, trying to find, I've got an exercise to go through to kind of find your core values, and that's where it all starts. So yours is going to be kind of about connection, about building up other
Yeah.
artists, promoting the arts, collaboration, all of those kinds of values are going to be what you're doing. So then it's a case of trying to make marketing that lives by those values so that I don't. This isn't a sausage machine. It's not a kind of I've got a system and you will run through all the steps and by the if you don't do everything right, then it won't work. It's not that. I think every artist should have their own unique way of selling their work because it's based on the values that you live for. And those values come out in the art and they should come out in your marketing because then you're preparing people as they get closer to you. You're kind of pre-selling people. So when they come to
Yeah.
fruition, they're ready to buy.
I completely agree with you. And it's a really good concept you got about artists. I think the other thing as well is you mentioned before um, about because see about social media, and I was born in 1998, and I couldn't imagine a world without social media.
Right.
Um, and it almost seems unimaginable to me that a long time ago, people were just handing out flyers, and you would read an ad in the newspaper, and you would ring them up. But nowadays, you can message someone in about 2 or 3 seconds and you can have a job, or you can, you know, get some creative work and have lots of opportunities, and I can't imagine a world without social media, but it's almost quite strange, isn't it? Because do you think nowadays that creative people have less opportunities with um, the internet and social media, or do you think there's kind of people have had more things without social media? What's your kind of view on that?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's obviously easy to put your work out there.
Mm.
Um, that's easier now than it was. Um, and by the way, you being born in 98 is about 21 years after my teenage years
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
when I kind of adolesced to punk. which was all about zines and
mm, yeah,
learn three chords and get up on stage kind of thing. So
mm,
you could
yeah,
do that. And we're seeing things like I don't know if you come across the Mandy Apple thing here in Scarborough that seems to be, I don't know, but seems to be a kind of an artist collective, and they're putting things on, and that seems to have that same kind of punk feel of just get on and do it.
yeah.
So I kind of quite like that, and I love there's a thing called guerrilla marketing where you kind of maybe put up posters or leave painted pebbles around or chalk the sidewalk or whatever. Um, kind of alternative ways of promoting yourself. But and there are artists that I've spoken to that would rather not use social media.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of sat down and think, oh right, okay, I should be able to do this. Let's sit and according to my thing, will every artist should have their own thing. Yeah, and you sit down to think about so publicizing yourself without social media, and actually, it's quite hard. So
Oh yeah,
it's
absolutely.
right
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, yeah, completely. I mean, I've when I first started, because I have a theatre company and we've done a few local productions kind of around Scarborough and Whitby and things like that, places like that. And that when we first started doing it, we contacted the radio, a few press releases, everything you need to do really. We handed out posters everywhere. Um, but when we first started doing it, putting shows on, we never actually promoted it on social media,
Right.
like on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And it was quite interesting because we were kind of doing it, the old-fashioned way, where you
Mm,
didn't do
mm.
anything online. It was before 1998, and we just handed out posters to people in the street. And it's almost like there's something more joyous in doing that than doing it on social media, because you can actually talk to people face to face, and it was a lot more. I just find it a little bit more exciting than
Yeah.
just posting on social media and being at home and having my phone in front of me.
Yeah, but if you're in theatre, then you're naturally going to be outgoing and a kind of people person. But if you're a painter,
Yeah. Mm.
perhaps you're drawn to spending quiet times in the studio and making the art in a not necessarily contemplative way, but with nobody bothering you,
Yeah.
then I've a lot of the artists that I've spoken to recently um, have been going to art shows with mixed results, and they do it because then they get the interaction, they get to shake hands, they get to see
Yeah.
people eye to eye, and get to hear the feedback that they get from their art. So it is obviously important. Otherwise, um, for me, because I'm a marketer, it's about meeting the world halfway. So there is this thing about I spoke to one artist ages ago that was kind of, well, if it's not real art if you're trying to sell it. You
Mm.
just do art like for yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so it comes from the heart, and you've got no concept, no that commerciality doesn't come into the decisions, and I pretty much agree with that. Um, but then they just didn't want to sell it either.
Yeah. Mm.
So, but when I was a lad, I cycled to North Wales to take a weekend experience in a commune,
Right.
and the people, most of the visitors kind of went to bed. I was left with the commune people, and they basically took me apart completely, and I was left a kind of sweaty, quivering wreck. Because they just kind of went, well, what do you want to do? And I just left school and I kind of, well, I'll hang around on the dole. And
Mm.
that was the
Yeah,
wrong thing to say to people who live communally, because if you live communally, you take responsibility and you do what you can and you contribute and if all you can do is prep the food, then that's what you do. There's no space for anybody to hang around. And I was kind of saying, well, I'll just hang around. They just took me apart completely. So I think we all have responsibility to society and we all have to meet the world halfway. So if you're making art, half of that is what's the reaction, what happens at the other end when you
mm,
do it and
yeah,
you hand it over. The other person completes the art by interpreting it and taking action, or it changes them or whatever. We need to think more about that. And that's the kind of, what are you doing to the world with your art? What is it that it's not necessarily that has to have an overt message, but you have to meet the world halfway somehow.
yeah. That's it. I think one of the hardest things, especially for creative people, is money, and well, it's the same for anyone really. It's not. It's waking up, and maybe I'm following the same kind of concept as you are, but it's waking up in the morning, and you can be as creative as you want, have all these ideas in your head, but it's just really kind of striving to earn money, and I think a lot of one of the main reasons why people don't wake up in the morning and stop being creative because they're just on this downward spiral of not earning money. And obviously you've got some courses in place here to help people kind of get their art out there and get it into quite an intelligent type form where it looks good. Um, and I think that would help and support people a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of free stuff, so that you join my mailing list and get a, weekly um, thing to do that will improve your sales. I like the idea of, it was quite a long time ago now that I read somebody came up with this idea that I like the idea of equilibrium. So, if you've got some money coming in and some money going out, and you're not necessarily going downhill, but it may not be a great situation, but things are relatively in balance. I know how it feels when it's not, but uh so then can you improve something? Can so this is all happening, you're going to work, but more or less, you're not dying, and it's kind of whatever the situation is, but it's in balance. It keeps going like that. And so, what can you do to improve your chances on the creative side? So it might be, um, just something like, okay, I'm going to post to Instagram every day, let's say, and you kind of
Yeah.
add that to the equilibrium, and that just gives you more opportunity. And it may not change the balance that much, but um, if you've ever, I don't know how kind of uh, anyway, if you think in terms of improving things by like 1%, so something like that might improve your situation by 1%. But if you string a load of those 1% together, it can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
so, and it may not be that it's okay, you've got to do more, and now you've got to do more, and now you've got to do more. It may just be that, okay, like for instance, I do have a course called Easy Reach, which is about how to do Instagram. Just make small changes to your Instagram that gets you more reach. Because there are some things that kind of go out to non-followers that reach out to new people, and other things you do on Instagram that are likely to go to your followers. So yeah, if you want to be discovered, then you need to get out. You need to improve your reach, and so
Yeah.
that's what that course is all about. Um, and it's not necessarily more effortful. It's just changing. It's just doing something a little bit differently. Um, and so it's not more effort, it's just better. And so making those small changes, um, can really improve things over time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, we've kind of talked about your courses and kind of what you provide through Sell Your Art blog, and I'll link your website onto this
Okay.
interview as well. People can check out, kind of what you provide there in terms of courses and everything else. Just another question I want to ask you. Tell me about your artist. I can edit this out. Tell me about your artistic streak and the creative work you do and you kind of complete and provide.
Yeah, I'm uh when I was at school, I was science. I was absolutely science. And it was kind of just before the personal computer.
Right. Yeah.
So I remember one of my teachers was building a personal computer on his desk instead of teaching us. He set us something, and then he got his soldering iron out, and he got this wooden box, and he was soldering this personal computer together because that was the revolution. That was what was coming. Then we had the Commodore PET, and those kinds of things, and ended up with Sinclair stuff, um, and so I was kind of heading off to that area. But what I ended up doing, I went to Leeds University to study computer science, but I dropped out in year two. And basically, what happened was I kept finding myself in the arts library.
Oh,
So,
right. Okay.
I was kind of, this is really boring.
Yeah.
I know it's the future, but actually, I mean, we got grants in those days, and the first thing I did with the grant money was buy a camera and bought a book on Picasso. That those were
Mm,
the things
yeah.
that I spent my grant money on. And so there is a kind of a creative side to me that somehow doesn't go away. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Mm,
always there. I was in a band as well at the time. So yeah, so now it kind of comes out. My art teacher, so back when I was doing science, my art teacher, and it's the only thing I ever remember about this art teacher saying to me, because I think it was the only time he'd ever spoken to me, he kind of said, "You will need somewhere for your creativity to come out."
yeah. Mm,
Um, and I can absolutely remember him saying that to me, and that was what be about 1975. So yeah, so yeah, I was in a band, and then so now it comes out. I've been the drummer in Scandals, which is a local ska band,
yeah.
for 20 years. So there was that. And nowadays, um, I walk the dog every morning, and take my camera out and try and take a kind of uplifting photograph every morning. And one of the things that I've realized, um, is I, I keep referring to my age. I'm 62. Um, I've only just realized that I'm autistic.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, that explains a lot. I wish I'd known that before. Um, and part of that realization, after kind of thinking, well, um, is that the kind of photographs I'm taking are kind of rhythms, of patterns, of
Mm,
simplicity, of
yeah.
texture.
Mm.
And it's kind of, I'm taking autistic photographs here. That's what I'm doing.
No, it's really interesting. And actually this is a question that I wanted to bring up is I wanted to talk about kind of photography and kind of it helping with um kind of people's well-being and
Hmm.
people's mental health. Um, do you no, I don't really like to add labels, on things. But do you kind of think in terms, if people had anxiety or something like that, and you know, we always say that the best cure for that is not, a bag of pills, but a walk
Yeah,
in the woods.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, sure.
do you think photography is just a really good well-being for people with, anxiety and they're a bit stressed out sometimes? What are your kind of thoughts on that?
I'm possibly not the best person to ask that of
Yeah,
because I mean, it has given me that reflection. So it has kind of proved to me that there is this autism thing. Um, but I'm like an oil tanker. I'm emotionally, it takes a lot to move me either way. So I'm
yeah,
blessed with a stable head, really. So I don't have a lot of experience of mental health issues. Um, but there's a lot of the artists that I work with who, um, there's a lot of benefit in kind of creative play. So whether, you're free um, to just mess around with materials or something like that. And
yeah,
one of the things that I kind of want to get away from with the camera work is, you've got to get it pin sharp and you've got to get it um, properly laid out, and you've got to get your exposure right. And all of those things are important if you're doing that kind of photography. But I kind of like being blurred and
yeah, yeah.
moving the camera around and stuff like that. It's just kind of freeing yourself. So I think
No, yeah,
there's something in that. And I guess it's a place where whatever creative pursuit you undertake, you're in control of it. Nobody can tell you, to do it faster or slower, or, it's your creative pursuit. You do what you like. So that's got to be good mental health wise.
yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting you kind of mentioned the autism kind of around photography. Is because you kind of mentioned that you have quite a different approach to kind of taking, visual pictures and things like that. Does it sometimes? Because I'm not sure because I was at Fingal's Cave on the Isle of Stafford. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's in Scotland. It was this amazing kind of geological formation of rocks, and it almost looks like lava, and it's amazing, really. And as I went on the boat and I saw the island, I thought, oh, this looks beautiful. I can't wait to take some pictures. Um, I think I must have only took about 3 pictures because it's such a. I think, especially if you're in awe of such a beautiful place and you're doing photography and taking pictures, it's really difficult to get a really, really good picture in such a beautiful place. And I think it must have took me about probably about 10 minutes to get the right shot of the island.
Mm,
Um, but I think some people work in different ways, and it's quite interesting. Because it's like people think photography, you know, a lot of people say you don't have to learn photography,
mm.
but I think you do. You have to learn
Yeah.
kind of the visual side of it, or you have to get the sky right, or the
Mm.
colors right. It's a lot more complicated than just having an iPhone and then,
Yeah,
take.
there is a lot to it. Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I've been playing with is composition, which I didn't know anything about really. And um, so that yeah, it's a learning thing as well. I actually asked ChatGPT to make me up a kind of a photography course, so it kind of
Yeah.
laid it
Mm.
all out, and I've kind of every now and then I'll dip in. Oh, what am I supposed to be doing? Oh, depth of field, right? Okay, fine. And so I'm kind of working through that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. One of the other things I wanted to bring up is before we talked a lot about social media and your
Mm,
kind of courses helping people promote their work on social media and getting the voices out there in the world. One of the things I'm interested in because, like I said again, in a family orientated. Sorry, I'm in an art orientated family, and a lot of my family does a lot of art and music and luckily, I did the music, not the art. I wish I did do the art, but I picked the music instead. But one of the things I'm interested in talking to you about is because I've been to a few art exhibitions before, um, kind of around my local communities, and my family's done some stuff as well. I've never actually experienced an online art exhibition. Now,
Right.
I've been to all these in-person art exhibitions in Hull and Scarborough, all these places, but have you ever been to an online one? And kind of what's
Well,
it like to experience?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there is the whole kind of don a headset and pretend you're walking around the gallery thing. It's not really what I'm talking about.
no,
All there's there's a whole set of sales psychology that goes with an exhibition.
yeah,
So it's new. It's open now and then it's going to close on this date, so it's kind of time limited. It's this thing's never going to happen again, this
yeah,
exhibition, whatever it is. um and um so there's it's kind of newsworthy. um and I like the idea that an artist might show a collection. It's kind of a snapshot of where they are. And
yeah,
then if they do another exhibition in 6 months' time, they've probably developed a little bit. And so an astute collector would be able to look at this exhibition this year and the exhibition next year and see the trajectory and kind of go, well, I can see where this artist is going. And so maybe it's
yeah,
worth investing now. After all, these 10 paintings, I'm never gonna, they're not, if I want a painting from this era and I know that this artist is going to do well, then I'm gonna have to buy it because it's not going to be there forever. Somebody else is going to snap it up. There's all that kind of
yeah,
feeling. Um, and that is much better than the artist that paints and puts up and paints and puts up and paints and puts up. Uh, because that gives a negative motivation, which is kind of, well, I like this painting, but I'm not sure if next week's painting's going to be better. What if I buy this week's painting
yeah,
and then I get buyer's remorse because next week's I actually when I see next week's painting, I like that more, kind of thing. So that kind of ongoingness, I think depresses sales. So if you kind of lump it together so then the opportunity is there um, to kind of say, well, I'm going to go into the studio and I'm going to kind of right, you're gone. Bye bye social media. I'm going to go into the studio, do my art. And then in a bit, I'm going to come back and say, well, I've got some new art to show you. And I've got this exhibition coming up. And that feels like it's a lot more interesting than just kind of being ongoing. So exhibitions are good because they've got all that psychology in them. The other thing about coming off social media is you get to rest, and rest is important when you're
yeah,
creative. You need your subconscious to kind of bubble through. So that's all good. Um, so then I kind of thought, well, all of that is true, whether it's in a venue or on your website. You still do all of the um, publicity for it, and you still have a preview. But it's just like it's a collection of artworks on your website or even on Instagram or whatever. So if you don't have, I'm always thinking of things from the ground up, from kind of, okay, what if you don't have anything? What if you don't have an exhibition? What if you've got art, but you haven't, a gallery hasn't picked you up, you've got nowhere to exhibit? You can just do it on Instagram. You just do it on your website. And all of the publicity around it and the framing of it, not in terms of, but the linguistic framing of it makes it an exhibition. And then the other upside of that is you may have, there was an artist here in Scarborough who was selling really well in New York because
yeah,
their type of art just kind of went down well. It had a New York kind of mood to it. So, you may have international collectors or people who are interested in, you may be very specialist art that has a international um, kind of fan base. Or you could look at it from a diversity point of view and say, well, there are people, where it's hard for them to get out, hard for them to come to the venue, and crowds are difficult or whatever, but they can experience the preview, from the comfort of their home, as it were, and see the work. So that's what that's all about. It just means you can reach those people and you can have an exhibition even without having to, you can just do it without having to persuade anybody to put it on. And the other good thing about that is you don't have to pay anybody any commission.
Mm.
The other good thing about that is you don't have to pay anybody any commission if you sell work. It's all yours.
Well,
Um,
that's it, really. And that's just a great thing about even if you're not doing very good financially, you know, and you don't have the money to put on an art exhibition in your local community, um, just do it online instead,
mm,
Um, and, you may have a big room, empty room,
mm,
and you can put some nice lights up and then put all your paintings in this room. And then if you've got a good camera, you can take some pictures and then put it online. Um, those could be like one of the first steps,
yeah,
and then someone might buy one of the paintings, and then a couple of months later, you can, you know, get an art exhibition and
yeah,
do it as an open space and get people to turn up.
yeah,
But yeah, I think with social media as well is, especially when I've worked in some music before, I've just turned off my phone and turned off my iPad, um, and just haven't used anything electronic. Um, and then, because I think the thing with me, I don't love social media, and when I'm working on something creative, I just turn everything off. And
yeah,
then when I've finished a project or whatever, I then advertise it or put it online. But I'm not one of these people who really see it all the time, really. Um, and I tend to find what happens if I overuse it too much, I stop reading books. I
right,
find books not very interesting. I just don't find them interesting to read anymore. And it's kind of like I think sometimes you can get a little bit too overglued to our screens sometimes,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and sometimes it's just well, I actually think it's good for our well-being as well, just to read a book now and again.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, I just use social media mostly for stuff like this and creative stuff, but I don't really, overuse it. But just going back to if I was a struggling artist and I wasn't doing very well financially, I think one of the best things I could do is, if I had a nice open space at home and I had all these paintings together, I'd put them all in the room, get some good lighting, and then,
Mm.
put it online. And I just think it's just a great thing to do, then if you're not really good financially and you can't get an exhibition.
Yeah. One of the things I think most artists know about The Artist's Way, the book. And so I bought it and I'm doing like the very first step, which is journaling in the morning. Uh,
Right, yeah.
that's really kind of come out nicely. Takes a bit of time for me to do that, but and the first thing that happened was lots of ideas came out, that needed to go on there. It's like
Yeah.
not a shopping list, but a list of things that my subconscious was concerned that I'd forgotten, and kind of, oh yeah, yeah, I need to do that, I need to do that, I need
Yeah.
to. Um, but I mean, I don't, I had honestly no idea what the rest of the book's like, but lots of people recommend it. But as a first step, if you actually are not sure where to go next, that first step of journaling in the morning. Um, lets your subconscious speak to you, lets your soul guide you as to what to do next and how to kind of move forward. So I kind of rather like that. I'm not woo at all, but it's subconscious. It's giving your subconscious a way to speak to you, which is the other reason why rest is important, because you always get your best ideas in the shower or in the bath or walking the dog or whatever. Um, so that's another reason why it's good to switch off your social media, because that was what I
Oh
used to
yeah.
do,
Mm.
was kind of wake up and start looking at what Twitter originally. Twitter was my big, was where I went to. Not anymore, obviously. But yeah, so now it's not social media in the morning. It's journaling, and that's been a lot better for me, mental health wise. So it's been a lot more positive for me.
No, it's quite strange, but sometimes you can be, just sat in a Wi-Fi ridden house,
Mm,
if you're ill or
mm,
whatever, and
mm.
on your phone, and it's strange, but when you go out for a walk and there's no Wi-Fi, there's no TV, there's no radio
Mm,
signals or whatever,
mm,
it just feels just so peaceful,
mm. Yeah,
and it's just, yeah, it just feels quite strange, but I completely agree, it, now and again, it is really good just to get away from all of our screens and just, have time to ourselves to think,
yeah.
meditate, and, you know, um, and I
Mm,
also think it helps you solve things out. So there might be something you're stuck on, and it's just great to go out for a walk or sit down in a quiet place and reminisce about
yeah,
what, you know,
yeah.
you want to do, because you might be a little confused about something. And then, yeah, then all of a sudden you get an idea and
Yeah.
it flows, and then you're kind of creative again. Yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
I like the fact that she stipulates in the book that it's actual pen on paper. It's
yeah,
real. So I use a pencil and a yeah. So it's pencil on paper, and yeah, it's interesting because we don't even write anymore. So
no,
actually writing is an interesting act. So yeah, it is kind of challenging.
no. I mean, for me, I've tried Kindle. I've tried to read books off an iPad,
Mm,
and I just can't do it. It's
yeah,
just, I just can't do it. And I know a lot of people do it,
yeah,
but there's just nothing so original and nothing better than, you know, kind of smelling an old book and
yeah,
reading it, you
yeah.
know, um, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And I think that
Um,
there's something in that somebody said to me that politics kind of swings one way and then it swings back again. And I
yeah,
always think there was like rave music, but what came after rave music was acoustic music.
yeah,
So it was almost like while everybody was getting their rocks off or whatever, getting completely mashed in a field somewhere, there were some other people who were kind of delicately plucking
yeah,
mandolins or whatever and putting stuff together. And then as sentiment came back to them, uh, they were ready for it. And so I think with this AI revolution that's
yeah,
tunneling down upon us, and it is pretty much not going to stop. The opportunity for artists is to be real, is to be one to one, is to be together, be human. It is community. It is being real. And AI is hollow, good as
mm,
it is, and it is great. And it's going to do amazing things. Whether those amazing things are kill us all or make us all fantastic, who knows? But uh, it will never be human, and artists particularly are in the right place to be human.
mm, yeah,
Uh, I think that's something to emphasize in the marketing and presence. It's like going out to a gig, going out and see a small band in a pub. It's real. It's absolutely real. And yeah, nothing like it.
No, it's interesting, but I used to have a bookshop in Scarborough, and then it closed down, and then I started selling books online because I must have had about 2,000 books that I needed to sell, and it was getting too crowded in here. And I was selling a lot of books on eBay and Amazon, and I was advertising on Instagram, And then what I found is I think one of the biggest social media platforms, you might disagree, but I think it's TikTok and YouTube.
Mm,
Um, and even on TikTok, I was selling these books and I was getting quite a lot of orders. And what I used to do is I used AI to publish posts about these books that I was selling. And there was a book, um, which was Alice in Wonderland, by Lewis Carroll. And I put that book online, I did it as a post. I say I was selling it. You can check out our website. But what TikTok has, they have this thing called a lot of people have it, a lot of these social media websites. It's called AI generated. And you can just get the name of the book. You can say something like Alice in Wonderland. I'm selling this book. It's a great book. And then you can AI generate it, and then it will give you about 20 paragraphs, which would take you about 20 minutes to write.
mm.
And it was so amazing that it can give you all that information on about, 4 sentences. Um,
Yeah,
and it helped me a lot, because I
yeah,
would have been taking ages to, write a description about all these products I'm selling.
yeah. I think the thing that makes us different when we write, and it wouldn't work in that case, is our own particular experience. So you could add to that your own, something that connects you to that book.
Yeah,
So, one's own experiences are not accessible to AI. So
yeah,
you suddenly know if someone starts telling you their story, you know suddenly that you're not speaking to an AI, you're not reading AI generated copy. This is someone real.
yeah. Mm. Yeah, well, that's it, really. And I just found it amazing, and it's
Mm,
almost like cheating. I found it was almost like cheating in a test.
mm,
I don't know, but there was a big thing in the Hollywood film industry as well that there's been a lot of AI
mm,
used in these major films, and
mm.
I'm not sure if you've seen all the stuff in Hollywood. I think it was last year that all these actors they were all on strike because they didn't want AI to be used, and they were actually not getting actors in. They were just using artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of debate and there's a lot of controversy about it. But I think it helps some people, it doesn't help some people. And there's been a lot of stuff as well, like not getting these actors' consent, and kind of a lot of actors, and they've been suing these AI companies for copyright infringement and things like that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that does get a little bit too far, but it's almost like it can't be helped because AI is it's everywhere now,
Mm,
it's really popular.
yeah.
Yeah,
I've been following the kind of the legal ramifications, the campaigns to, uh, I think AI is great, but if it's basically ripped off all of artists' creations
mm, yeah,
and now it's going to sell it, um, then those artists should be compensated, and it should
yeah,
be
mm,
up to them whether that deal is good enough for them to let that happen or not. So those are the kind of main demands, I think. And it kind of happened with music. Um, I can't remember the original file sharing music for file sharing system for music, but that got taken down, didn't it, legally? So
Ah,
we ended up
yeah,
with kind of Spotify and that kind of thing. So um, hopefully artists will get an income from AI or get compensation. Whether it will be enough or not is to be decided, but that would be that would be good. Otherwise, it's just stealing. And I know, I know
yeah, mm,
it's useful. I use it all the time. But text is different to images and creating images, I think. Um,
yeah. That's it, really. Um, the yeah, it's just a really interesting topic, really. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to discuss is we've talked about cellular cell.
so
We've talked about I can edit it. um, we've talked about SellyourArtBlog and everything else. You kind of provide support for fellow artists, visual artists. Do a lot of courses online, and we can put the links below here. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is we're actually based in Scarborough, and I'm from the northeast as well. I'm originally from Whitby, and I've lived in Malton near York for the past couple of years now. But I used to live in Scarborough for a few years. Um, the interesting thing I want to talk about is that we've talked before about your photography work that you do and everything else. Do you think the northeast of England is just quite a creative place for photography, and can you kind of expand more on that, kind of like seaside towns and those sort of places?
yeah, and one of the reasons we kind of came here, I'm from the Midlands originally, um, was that there was some creativity here. Obviously, it's a beautiful place to live and so on.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, there are plenty of people who will moan about it,
Yeah. Mm.
and sometimes with good reason. Um, and but one of the things I liked about it was that I'm speaking about Scarborough now. Was that we are out on a limb a little bit.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half or something to get to the nearest city. Um, and so what that does is it makes it's the town's big enough to want to do things. And if you're going to do things, you're going to have to do it yourself and it's so there's a kind of a bit of a DIY attitude to it, but it's also not too big that you can't reach the main protagonists. So if something's happening, you can get involved quite directly, and you
Yeah.
can meet
Mm.
up with the person. Um, I wanted to kind of mention. I mean, I was never. I kind of got to shake his hand one time, and then he went and got a proper job with the Arts Council. But Pete Massey was um, told the story of kind of saying, well. I realized he was interested in the arts and he realized that the local council weren't they just didn't understand the arts. So it just
No.
wasn't
Mm.
in the conversation. So the way he told it, he went to all the meetings. So he then brought arts topics into the council meetings, just to kind of he could
Yeah.
add
Mm.
something to what they were talking about. And out of that came Coastable. I don't know if you were involved in that at all, but that was kind of a
They-
local.
yeah, I think I've heard it before. Yeah. And
So I mean now it's something different, but it was a arts festival in February. I did social media for it for a few years. Um, but so they got that out of it and got the funding out of it. Just by so it's the kind of size of place that you can get up and go and join in and get involved and get something to happen. Whereas I feel like something the size of Leeds or maybe Newcastle would be a lot bigger. There'd be more layers to kind of push through to get to whoever's making something happen. So I kind of quite like that about Scarborough. And there's another guy as well, Matt Panache. I mean, he's on the West Coast, so he's in Morecambe. And he came and performed at the Stephen Joseph Theatre as Monkey Poet a few years ago, and he's running poetry festivals, music festivals, and what's it, comedy festivals over in Morecambe,
But
which again was a very deprived area, equivalent to what they say Scarborough is. And he's made it happen, so you can make things happen in places of this kind of size. So I kind of quite like that about this.
yeah, yeah. Because it's interesting. I suppose there's a lot of photographers and a lot of artists.
Mm,
Some of the best artists and some of the best work that I've seen around the Northeast. It's been in these very derelict, I suppose I could say, austerity-driven seaside towns.
mm,
Not so much Scarborough, but if you go a bit
mm,
further up,
mm.
um, you're heading towards Loftus and Middlesbrough,
Mm.
and Redcar.
Red card.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's where the steelworks used to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is if you look back to the 70s, there was all the Margaret Thatcher strikes as well,
Mm,
uh, and there were a lot of. I was looking at um, some photography from the miners' strikes, and they were just so visual and
mm,
emotional, really,
mm,
But I kind of love that kind of that the type of photography, like kind of poor working class
mm,
type stuff, and I've always liked that, and especially in these poorer kind of areas in the
mm.
northeast, 'cause, I've always found that kind of stuff was really yeah, it's been my favorite subject in kind of photography, like style of subject, kind of, well, especially in the northeast, I know it. And I think it's just a great topic to talk about. And do you want to add a bit more on it?
Well, it makes me think of Scandals. So that became I mean, they were a different band before, but I was there at the inception, and but becoming a ska band, ska was that kind of working class,
Mm,
uh,
yeah,
interracial kind of thing. And what I didn't realize until we kind of decided to be a ska band is that ska music is international. It's vibrant. There's a
yeah.
lot going on in ska music worldwide. Um, and the feeling that I always had with the band was we're not there for us, we're there for the audience.
That's it.
So
Yeah,
you're there on a Friday night in a pub, or Saturday night or whatever, and people have worked all week, and this is just a great night, to let your hair down and let all the cares kind of and worries drift away a little bit. So that's how I always felt about it, and I always wanted to play, in areas where that's most needed. That's you know
yeah.
that
Mm.
that was what I always sought to do. I used to book all the gigs, so that's what I was always looking for. Was that kind of thing, just to not in a Jesus is coming to town kind of thing, but just
No, no.
just to be there. Um,
Well, that's it really. And I see this is the band you used to be in. Yeah.
well, it's yeah, Scandal's ska band. So I was in it for like 20 years, and then I'm actually moving out of area if we can sell the house. And so I left the band all very amicably. We planned it all, and we got a new drummer in, so that was all fine.
Yeah.
And then that new drummer's gone off on paternity leave, so I'm the stand-in drummer for now. We've got a gig
Oh,
on
right.
Thursday
Yeah.
in Whitby, so uh, and then yeah, New Year's Eve at the Newcastle Packet and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm in the band for 6 months or something till he
Oh,
comes.
right. Okay. Yeah. No, it's because I kind of, I've read a few press releases by you, and I've seen you all over Facebook, and I think I've heard you on the radio a few times as well. Kind of mentioned, and you are really popular around, kind of the northeast, Whitby, and
Mm.
all those other places. But I kind of see why, because the songs are quite about the working class, and you play in front of those people, and I kind of see, on that end of the stick, that's why you're kind of quite a popular band.
Yeah,
'Cause you actually play in front of those people as well. Yeah.
yeah. It also works for the holiday people as well. I know that when we've gone
Uh,
to a place and maybe we've gone to see a band, one evening, and yeah, it can be a really the high moment of someone's holiday, to be honest. So
yeah.
that's interesting, isn't it? That we experience it, me and my partner experience that, but we also get people saying that when they come to see Scandals. And so there's something where the an arts event, which is a band in a pub, is the biggest thing of someone's whole holiday.
Yeah.
Um, that's an importance of the arts thing. And of course,
Absolutely.
the venues are all under pressure, aren't they, as well? So it's important to try and keep the venues going as well.
Yeah, yeah. Just a final question here. Well, it's been a pleasure to interview, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. We've talked about, quite a few things. We talked about Sell Your Art blog, the type of courses and development you provide for fellow visual artists. I'll put all the links in below. We talked about yourself. We've talked about just some very interesting things in this interview. Kind of the final question I want to ask you is, what advice would you give to a struggling artist who's finding it a bit difficult to get his or her work heard in the world? What advice would you give for him?
I think it does come down to values. It's there's this thing of kind of what can you do? This it's the solvable problem. It's so I like the idea, the I don't know whether it's an analogy. Um, if you want to be the singer in a band, but you can't sing, then that's not going to happen. But the solvable problem is, what can you do about it? What's the first step that you can take? And
Yeah.
the first step is you go online, just today sometime, and find a singing tutor. So you could do that. You could just go online and
Yeah.
find where you could learn to sing, and that's just the first step but it's the solvable problem. What can you do? So it's really a matter of doing that, of finding steps that you can take from where you are. And I like the idea of, you know, Beyonce has a completely different view of life than we do because
Mm.
she's kind of over there and we're all stuck here. And
Yeah. Mm.
the analogy is stepping stones. It's kind of every time you step onto the next stone as you're crossing the river, you get to see more of the destination and it becomes clearer. You get to see around the corners, and so you get to see more of it the closer you get. So you can't plan the complete scenario of where you're going because you don't know what's there. But
Yeah. Mm.
you can take that first step. So um, that's the task, is working out what you actually can do and doing that. And it comes back to the old punk thing of the I actually saw the newsletter. It was in a zine that the actual post that said it was a diagram of three guitar chords.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, these are the three guitar chords. Um, Now go form a band. And that was so that's the kind of solvable problem. You learn the three chords, go form a band. Um, so I just kind of love that. You can do stuff. It's just a case of identifying what you can do.
That's it really. And a fellow struggling visual artists, could come across your post on Instagram and, they would, oh, this looks interesting. And then they can check out your blog and website and your courses and, you know, because I've kind of read up on what you provide, your courses, your self-development kind of courses that you provide. And if I was a fellow struggling artist, I would come across your posts and come across your courses and I think, oh, that's really interesting. I'm kind of glad I found this and I came across it. But yeah, but it's a really good thing that you've got going. And I hope it you know goes a lot better for you and you get a lot of people interested in it. And yeah, I wish you the best, really. But yeah, so thank you so much for this interview. This was my second interview with John, and he's with SellyourArtBlog, and you can find all of his information, all of his courses online to help and support visual artists. John, thank you very much for doing this interview.
Absolute pleasure.